When the Greek king Alexander the Great conquered Persia, the Persians called him Sikandar, meaning defender or warrior. It's not a light or casual name to give someone. It's almost like SIkandar Raza started with a mission. But his original dream was actually becoming a pilot. An eye condition prevented him from doing that, so he ended up as a software engineer. Cricket was there, but not really as a professional. But there is little doubt to make it to his level from Zimbabwean cricket, especially the mess it was in for most of his career, there is certainly a little bit of warrior in SIkandar Raza. But the software engineer needs brains as well. And Raza is a very smart player. Remember the ice-cold finish against CSK in this year's IPL? He ran a triple off the last ball to win it. That was him in top-level problem-solving mode. And recently a tweet from Random Cricket Stats got me thinking a little bit. There is definitely something to look at here. While he's not the biggest or best white ball player of his generation, Raza has started getting deserved recognition in the last couple of years. And it would be hard to argue that he is not one of the most valuable players overall in white ball cricket. But of course, this is a very new thing. CS Chawanza said that in 2017-18 there seemed to be an effort to push Raza out of the Zimbabwe national team. He was dropped because he did not exhibit the right levels of professionalism and desire to serve the country. That was 6 years ago. Now he is professionalism and no one serves Zimbabwe better. When he signed for a team in Canada's T20 League, Zimbabwe Cricket refused to give him a no objection certificate. So he terminated his contract with them. At that stage he only had 1 month left on what was a 1-year contract. And he was the only senior player with something that was that short term to begin with. Most of the experienced players had 3 or 4 year contracts. Also at that point, Raza had not been paid match fees for a year and was owed 5 months' salary. So at that point, Zimbabwe Cricket was actually refusing him the opportunity to go out and feed his family, despite them not actually paying him the money they owed. In this period, he was even called an ungrateful player. Zimbabwe Cricket sympathisers mauled him on social media. And at that stage, if his career ends, who is actually all that surprised? He would have just been another player broken down by the Zimbabwe cricket system. And here we are right now. It would be impossible to argue that he's not been Zimbabwe's most valuable player in the last couple of years, particularly in major tournaments and with bat and ball. His efforts meant that Zimbabwe were able to reach the Super 12 and pull off an upset against Pakistan in the T20 World Cup. They also nearly made it to the ODI World Cup this year. But it's not just what he's done for Zimbabwe. Raza was an integral part of Lahore in their title run earlier in 2023. He also played his first IPL season this year and had a decent all-round campaign. Now for me, this is all weird because it was only in 2018 that I was working with his agent trying to get him a single gig and pretty much no one wanted him anywhere. Fast forward 5 years from that and he's Zimbabwe's 3rd highest run scorer in all T20 internationals and the 8th highest in ODI cricket. He just barely misses out on a top 10 spot when it comes to ODI wickets, and he is 6th on the list for the highest wicket takers in T20 internationals for them. That is a fantastic achievement for any player from any team. And there is absolutely no doubt that this guy that they didn't want a few years ago is now an all-time great for Zimbabwe.
I know that you think you could run your favourite cricket team better than those who do, but no one is going to let you do that. So why not try Wicket Cricket Manager to satisfy that urge? Pick your nation, pick your league, pick your players, and yell at them when they do poorly. You can find it in the links below or by searching for Wicket Cricket Manager in your app store today.
But let's just get back to that question from before. Is he the most valuable white ball player in the world over the last couple of years? And of course, the genius of all-rounders can't just be seen in their batting or bowling averages. They stretch the team. They give you extra batters and extra bowlers. They turn 11 into 12. And it's an incredible feat. And it's why we talk about them so much, even when you look at their numbers sometimes and they don't seem as sexy. And here's a list of all-rounders who scored over 500 runs and taken 20 wickets in both ODIs and T20 internationals. This tells us that Raza has been among the few net positive all-rounders in terms of average in both formats. And while he may not actually be the best player on this metric, we need to dig a little bit deeper. We see that in 2023, it was definitely his best year as a batter in this format, with his last 3 years being the most dominant in terms of average and strike rate. Quite the double. He has produced exactly the sort of returns you would expect from a good middle order player, and his slower years actually came when he batted in the top 3. Clearly moving him to the middle order has completely changed the way he bats. But of course he bowls as well. He bowls off spin with a flatter trajectory, and his bowling really went to another level when he copied the Sunil Narayan method and started delivering knuckleballs. Plus he has a few other variations up his sleeve. He turned himself from a regular decent part-time off-spinner to a defensive weapon. This year has been one of his most productive with the ball in ODI cricket. But Sikandar also batted like a man possessed in 2022. Not only did he have an incredible improvement compared to his past record, but he was also one of the best T20 international cricketers in the entire world. And he didn't just start slogging, mostly because he couldn't afford to. He often came into bat in scenarios where he had to guide Zimbabwe home. But he still did it his own way by attacking from that number 5 position that he has finally made his own. But he didn't just hit his T20 batting peak in 2022. He took nearly twice the amount of wickets in 2022 that he did in the first 9 years of his career, while also going at 2 runs and over less. And this was as an off spinner playing the entire T20 World Cup and the qualifiers on Australian soil. He's basically gone from a part-time bowler to prime Sunil Narine in the blink of an eye. And at the very top level, I think his batting completely holds up, but his bowling doesn't quite. We've seen some slippage in the PSL and the IPL. But he's still a lot better than most fifth bowling options out there. But at these last World Cup qualifiers, he was just a monster. In the match against the West Indies, he was 68 from 58, and then with the ball, picked up a couple of wickets as well. Those were the sorts of games we saw lots of in the T20 World Cup as well. But that wasn't even his biggest match. Against the Netherlands, he took 4 of the Netherlands' 6 wickets. Without him, the Dutch might have actually gone on score way closer to 400. And why do I say 400? Because they're a long way away from that. Because when he came out to the bat, that's what he made that pitch look like. He scored not only a beast of 100, but the quickest in Zimbabwean history. When he came to the crease, they were 162 for 3 after 24 overs. 17 overs later, they had chased down 316. His 100 was from 54 balls. This is not a normal thing from a Zimbabwean cricketer. But forget the fact he's from there. Just think about him as a journeyman cricketer. In his early 30s, he was pretty much considered washed by his own team. And he's doing this? I mean, to prove how good he was, Raza was nominated for 3 major ICC awards. ODI Player of the Year, T20 International Player of the Year, and Cricketer of the Year. So you can see why we're asking the question of whether he's the most valuable player in white ball cricket. And the answer is probably no. Partly because at the top level, his bowling just isn't quite good enough yet. And his batting is fantastic, but probably at that higher level, it's more about incredible cameos rather than putting a team on his back like he does for Zimbabwe. However, the fact that he can pull off these kinds of catches at his age is certainly worth a bonus that almost for me gives him the crown. But that is the point here. What we are talking about is a 37-year-old cricketer who was a software engineer playing for a nation whose cricket team couldn't afford boots and was banned by the ICC. He was a middling player of little consequence who has become a World Cup destroyer and plays in the biggest league on earth. He took Zimbabwe to the second round of the last World Cup and almost carried them through to the World Cup this time. Players don't usually have peaks like this so late in their life. And Zimbabwean cricketers haven't reached heights like this at home for such a long time. He may not be the most valuable player in all white ball cricket. But is there any other team who relies on one player more than Zimbabwe do with SIkandar Raza? This is a victory for self-improvement. He has rinsed every last bit of talent out of himself and professionalized his own career even during the darkest days of Zimbabwean cricket. SIkandar Raza has lived up to his name. He may have started as a software engineer, but he's a warrior now.